Hello everyone, welcome to Lighting Foundation course. Today we are diving deep into the world of lighting in Maya Arnold. Lighting is the backbone of creating realistic and cinematic scene. By the end of this video, you will have a solid understanding of all the different types of lighting Arnold and how to use them efficiently. Let's get started. We have a simple scenes with the default shader enabled, and you can download these files from Arnold Learning Resources page, and also you can find this link under the description. In film production, lights are crucial for shaping the mood and emotion of a scene. There are several types of lights available, each with unique properties. Let's navigate to Arnold menu and select lights. This include area light, sky dome light, mesh light, photometric light, light portal, and physical sky. Also, we have a native Maya lights available in create menu. Most of all these lights have Arnold settings enabled except ambient lights and volume lights. Let's take a directional lights and an ambient light. In the directional light, we already said we have Arnold settings are enabled, and the ambient light doesn't have those settings. The reason behind this in Maya, ambient lights typically don't have a dedicated Arnold settings because they are considered as a global light source within the Maya render engine, not a specific light object that Arnold needs to individually control. When using Arnold as a renderer, you primarily access a specific settings for individual lights type like point light, area light, and spotlight within the Arnold attribute, not the generic Maya ambient light settings. Now let's talk about the area light. And this is one of the most used lights in production for many lighting scenarios. What makes this lighting more appealing is the ability to create soft shadows. So it could be used for things like windows or studios of boxes, like anything that demands larger square areas. Now let's create a rect light in the scene. And if you see, the light becomes square shaped and we have a pointer on one side of the light, meaning that this is the direction the light emits from. Now let's adjust the scale and reposition towards the window. Let's copy this light to other windows. Let's render this scene. Now we are getting a pitch black scene, meaning that there is no light contribution in the scene. Now let's look into the details panel. The main light parameters like light color, intensity, and exposure are very similar to any other light sources in Arnold. So in order to get light contribution in the scene, then we must increase the exposure value. Let's increase the exposure. So we are getting some illumination in the scene. And let's copy the exposure to other lights. We will add some variation in the exposure. Let's render again. And we can see that each window has slightly exposure variation than other window lights. We may think we are increasing exposure, not intensity. The reason behind this is in production, light values are represented by exposure rather than the intensity values. This is essentially just a remapping of intensity values. You can calculate exposure from intensity using a formula. Raising a light by stop thus makes the light twice as bright, while lowering a light by a stop will make half as bright. So we use exposure rather than intensity since talking in stops. It's common in real world photography. And since additive exposure calculations are much easier to do than, multiplicative adjustment in intensity values. Also, it reinforces the notion that in lighting, we are not dealing with the absolute values, but values relative to what in the plate. The color attribute drive the color of the light. Let's see that. You can also adjust the color by enabling the color temperature. In Maya, color temperatures bar ranges from 1000 to 15,000 Kelvin scale. Warmer temperature are on the left hand side with a lower Kelvin values. Cooler color temperature always on the right hand side with a higher Kelvin value. A natural white light is a color temperature that ranges from 4500 to 5500 Kelvin. It's a versatile light that often used in homes and offices. The color temperature of a light source can affect the mood and atmosphere of a space. For example, a warm light can create a cozy feel, while a cool light can create a stimulating feel. In Arnold, we have multiple light shapes, and the default shape is a chord. Other shapes like cylinder and disc shape. These light shapes have its own use cases, like cylindrical shapes can be used as tube light. Let's do that. We will duplicate the rect light from window. Let's change the shape to cylinder. We'll resize this shape and move towards too close to the wall. Let's render this frame. We'll isolate this particular light. Moving a bit more close to the wall. Let's render again. We'll adjust the exposure. So this shape is ideal for any tube light shapes in the scene. Now let's change this light shape to disc shape. Let's reposition this source just below the hanging light. Let's rotate it in y axis. Let's move this. Yes, let's render this out. You can see that the disc light have a linear distribution, so it can be used for hanging light. Let's go back to the rect light shape. Another important aspects of the rect light is the light scale is proportional to the softness and hardness of the shadow. The same way it works in real life. The bigger the light source, the softer the shadow will be. Now let's increase and decrease the scale and check. Now let's adjust the light spread. This property is very similar to like a band door settings in films. A band door is an attachment used in stage and films lighting that allows precise control over the shape and directions of the light beam. It consists of 2 or 4 adjustable metal flaps that are mounted around the edges of a light fixture. These flaps can be moved or to shape or block a part of the light, preventing unwanted spills and controlling the beam spread. In Arnold, a spread value of 1, meaning that the light emits light in a diffuse way. This is the default value of a spread. The lower spread values focus the light more, making it more towards like a laser beam. it can be noisy, than the default spread values. Let's switch back into the default value. Let's change this light to quad light. The resolution parameter in Arnold controls the resolution's important sampling table of quad light. The default value of the parameter is 5 told. This can be reduced, sampling noises, especially when you are using HDRI textures. So another important parameter is the roundness parameter. The roundness parameter of a light changes the shape of the light from a square to disc. So the intermediate value like zero point 0.5 is the round at the corner between square and disc light. It's very important to notice the roundness also affect the spread of the light. Next to that, there is a soft edge parameter. The soft edge will be allows us to create more soft decay towards the edge of the light. So these two light parameter will help us to create a studio softbox look with high dynamic range lighting situation. Lighting samples will allows us to reduce the sampling noise in the scene. Let's render this. But we would carefully increase these values because this will cost you in rendering. The shadow density and the shadow color, we usually don't touch this in production. The problem is if you change these values, this will be break the physicalities of your lights. Shadow density is the intensity of your shadow, and the shadow color is the color of your shadow. Another important aspects of the light is the visibility panel. The visibility parameter controls which rays of an object is visible to these values, and this will be covered in upcoming sessions. For now, we will see the max bounce settings. This is especially the maximum number of times light energy can bounce in the scenes is called max bounce. The default values is 999 bounce per light, but we could set the right values in order to preserve the quality as well as the render time. A max bounce value of 0 disables the global illumination of that particular light and only allows the part of direct lighting calculations. Increasing the max bounce values in some extent will add more bounce light contribution to the scene. The effect of increasing max bounce is especially noticeable for interior scenes. Let's increase these values. That's the overall settings about rect light, and we will see the next light in the next video.